Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubadas. It's Monday. Welcome to the show. It's episode 1411. Sitting here live with the group. We got half the group doing yoga, got half the group here watching on behind us, and wrapping up our chant camp retreat. Very sweet retreat, right, Mary?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is really wonderful. It's just really, all these people want to do is sing all day. They're really hooked. Even we give them a timeout between like classes and stuff. They don't leave. They just stay around. They sing. They practice mridanga and cartels and harmonium, and they just sing. It's a great retreat we do here, and yeah, I'm really happy. It's winding down today.
Yeah.
Got some announcements, Miss Mara?
I do. It's Wear Your Merch Monday. So help us promote the show by wearing your Wisdom of the Sages merch. Take a picture of it and share it on social media. Tag us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll share the post too.
All right.
So
there you go.
Shirt too.
Mara's got one too. Okay. I'm going to be in Jersey.
It's my do your laundry Monday. I don't have any clean merch.
Do your laundry. do your merch.
Wash your merch Monday.
Wash your merch Monday. Maybe we call it that.
Yeah.
Also, New Jersey residents, I'm going to be at Yoga de Soul at Tom's River. It's this Thursday, September 5th. I'm going to be doing a book signing at Creep Records. That's a good name, isn't it? Creep Records in Philly at 5:30 to 7. Then immediately I'm going to the Bhakti Garden, and I'm going to do a kirtan night, 7:30 in Philly this weekend. September 7th, Balanced Planet Yoga. And it's an all-day event I'm doing in Marlton, PA. It's a yoga, kirtan, etc. event. And then September 8th, Yoga Bohemia in Long Beach Island in New Jersey. I'm doing a morning big workshop, but before that, we're doing Wisdom of the Sages live. And I'm going to be interviewing the guys who made that movie, Cowspiracy. For the podcast. So we're looking forward to that. Hope to see you this week. It's starting to get hectic in my life, Kostuba. We got this.
Okay.
I'm going out this week. Then I'm going to do these shelter shows the following week.
All right. You do what you got to do, Rogo.
Yeah, got to do what got to do.
Are we having a show on Wednesday? Is that the day that you're traveling?
We can have a show on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's next Wednesday. I think that might be a problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's next Wednesday. I go to Potomac, Maryland. All right.
Okay.
Nugget, please.
Oh, nugget today. You want me to kind of explain the nugget?
Yeah, please.
Okay, today's nugget. Let me pull this up here. 1 second. Today's nugget. Where is it? Oh, the senses.
We can discuss the clip.
Okay, I got it.
Television show.
Yeah, there's a television show. I never even heard of it. I just saw this clip from it, but it's called The Irrational. Okay. And I think what the idea behind the show is, you know how like they have these shows where like there's someone that's got some kind of special ability or talent and they help police solve murders with their special.
Those are very interesting.
Okay, well, then you're probably gonna love it, Ragnar. I think this show is about there's some professor that studies the human mind and the ways that it thinks, the irrational kind of ways that it thinks, and he uses that to help solve these murder mysteries. He helps he helps the police kind of consult him.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating. Okay. So, but there's a clip from that show where it's showing this professor and he's in front of a whole class of students and they're all kind of hooked up with a computer system. And he's got like a big screen behind him. And he says to them, I'm going to play you a recording of people chanting something. And what they're chanting is, that is embarrassing. And on the screen behind him, it's like a big, huge movie screen. it says that is embarrassing on the screen. That's all it says, is that is embarrassing.
Okay.
And then he plays it, and he says, and when I play it, I want you all to write down what you hear. What are they
But it
chanting
says that is embarrassing.
on the screen?
It says exactly what they're saying.
Well, just hear me out. And
Okay.
so he plays it, and you hear it. They're you know what it sounds like is like, you know, like in England, they have these football chants.
Yeah.
But they get real creative over there. Like they'll chant that is embarrassing or something. You know, like
Yeah.
in America, it's just like, you know, like Boston sucks or something like that.
Yeah, it's
Like-
let's go Brandon. I get it. It's people just chanting over and over.
So they chant, you know, that is embarrassing, that is embarrassing, that is embarrassing, that is embarrassing. They chant it 4 times.
Oh, that's nice.
So you hear it, you hear them chanting, you know, in a distinct British accent, a large group of people chanting that is embarrassing. He says, now write down what you heard. And then they all, practically everyone writes down, I heard that is embarrassing.
Okay.
He says, okay, I'm going to play it again now. And I'm going to put something else up on the screen. And then I want you to write what you heard. And so then up on the screen, it says, that isn't my receipt. Okay.
That isn't my receipt. It was like the wrong receipt.
Well, you know, that's not important right now.
Okay.
So he plays it again. And when you listen and you look at that on the screen, that isn't my receipt, you actually hear them chanting, that isn't my receipt, even though it's the exact same recording. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Then he puts another thing up there that says lactates in pharmacy. Okay. And when he plays it, then you hear that. Then it says baptism piracy.
Oh yeah.
Then it says I'm chasing a Martian. Then it says Bart
there, done
Simpson, Bart Simpson bouncing. And in each case,
bouncing.
yeah, in each case, like if you would have never heard that is embarrassing, which I assume is actually what they were chanting,
Right.
you would have thought they said that isn't my receipt, or you would have thought that they're chanting baptism piracy, or
But
you would
he's
have thought,
basically prompting them what to hear.
yes, and so then he says, our eyes and ears take in electric signals. In Vedanta, we'd call that sense perception, right?
Yeah.
Our eyes and ears take in electric signals, which our brains interpret. Here we would say the mind interprets, right?
Mhm.
Which our brains interpret based on our expectations, which we would call samskars. You know, like these, not exactly that expectations and samskars are identical, but our expectations are based on our previous mental impressions. He says, so what he says is we don't see reality, we see our reality. In other words, our sense perception is something that is influenced by our individual mental programming. And it's when you see it played out in that visceral way, or, you know, that very tangible way, wow, that's really crazy, right? I really heard them saying something else, chanting something else when I was prompted to. Then you realize we couldn't take that. I assume he was a psychology professor or something like that, and he was just showing,
Sure.
look how the mind works and the influence that it has and so on. That kind of thing, we see that kind of thing play out in popular culture in different ways. Like take sports, right?
Yeah.
You like take baseball, for instance, where a pitcher from, I don't know, 90 feet away or something like that has to throw a baseball over a plate that's like, I don't know, like a foot and a half wide or
You
something
ever
like
try
that.
to pitch
2
a
feet wide.
baseball? It's hard.
I used to do it.
You were a pitcher.
Yeah, I was one. I
It's
mean,
very difficult to do. With
well,
accuracy, found it very hard.
you know what else is hard? Judging whether or not he got it over the plate.
Yeah.
You know, these pitchers in professional baseball, they throw, you know, even over 100 miles an hour. You know, that thing zips across, and it's got to be within a certain height and a certain width to be called a strike.
Right.
And the umpire, who is just a couple feet away, will make a call, that was a strike.
Right.
And 40,000 people in the stadium that are much farther away are all convinced that it was a ball. Right.
Right. You know what? They're going to replace umpires with AI. There's no way. Why leave this up to human interpretation?
That's likely that will happen. Not AI, but just like an electric kind of sensor.
Yeah.
But my point is this, is that meanwhile, everybody watching on television from the city of the other team is convinced that it was a strike, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And they're very convinced, you know, they're very convinced. You know, we discussed this on the show once before, the Dartmouth Scar Experiment.
Right.
Which was this very interesting experiment where they took 48 people and almost, you know, pretty even mix of male and female. And they would have them in a room and they would say, okay, we're going to do this experiment where we're going to paint a really kind of like serious scar across your face. Mm. And then we're going to send you out into this room to associate with people. And then we want you to come back and tell us about your experience. Here's actually, I have it written here. The Dartmouth Scar Experience, participants were told that the experiment was meant to observe, this is what they were told, if people behave differently towards those with facial scars.
I'm sure they do, yeah.
Participants were placed in rooms with no mirrors. A makeup artist proceeded to draw a scar on their face. After the scar was drawn, participants were given a short glimpse of it with a pocket mirror. Okay, see the scar? Participants were then invited to leave the room and interact with folks in the building. Before they left the room, the makeup artist told the participants that the scar needed some final touch-ups. But what the makeup artist actually did next was to wipe off the scar.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, that
plot twist.
Plot twist.
There was no scar.
There was no scar.
He just thinks he has a scar.
Exact. Participants left the room thinking they still wore a makeup scar.
Okay,
now, here's the thing.
What happened?
They overwhelmingly reported back that people stared at their scars and were mean and rude to them.
Okay. So you're saying people are just mean and rude?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is because they thought they had a scar, they interpreted normal interactions as being hostile due to the scar that actually didn't exist.
Oh man, this brings up so many thoughts. I'm glad you did this nugget today.
I'm going to throw one more at you. It was like the OJ trial, right?
Yeah. No one wanted to convict him. We loved OJ.
Well, no, hold it, Raghunath. There was a racial divide into how people understood that whether he was guilty or not, whether they believed.
Really?
Where were you?
You know what? I think I was in the
90s.
ashram. Okay. I don't remember watching any of the OJ trial. Did it happen while I was in the ashram?
It happened in 94, 95, I think.
Yeah, I was in the ashram. I couldn't care less.
Okay, well, what
I was
happened?
like, Haribo! That's where I was during the OJ trial.
Okay, but I think, let me pull this up. I think I got some stats on this. That when the O.J. Simpson trial happened, you know, all this, the whole trial was televised. Right. You know, and the whole country was like totally caught up in it.
Except for the Hare Krishnas.
That may be, yeah. And let's see if I can find it. The percentage of white people that believed he was guilty was something like, it was different at different times, like during the trial and then after the trial. I think after the trial, it went up for both black and white groups. But it was something like during the trial, 23% of black people felt that he was guilty in the United States.
Okay.
And something like 65% of white people felt he was guilty. And so again, the idea is like the evidence was the same. Everyone was watching the same trial. But, and here's the word that I want to draw attention to. We're imposing ideas, thoughts, experiences from our past onto it. and seeing what we call reality, but it's a reality that is shaped by this superimposition of our past experience on top of it. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Some internal unconscious bias.
Yeah. And so this is, this has a lot to do with Vedanta. This has a lot to do with Bhakti Vedanta, the philosophy that we read in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's this concept, or this word, adhyasa, a word and concept, adhyasa, which means superimposition. That you superimpose an attribute or a quality or a characteristic of one thing onto another thing.
Yeah.
The classic example used in Vedanta is the snake and the rope.
Sure.
Right? Where you look at a rope, let's say it's dark out, and you look at a rope, let's say you open up the front door to your house and it's dark out, and you see on the porch, oh my God, there's a snake.
Right.
You see this coiled up snake, and you immediately slam the door and go back inside. And then, which is something that could happen in a place like India, maybe in America this doesn't happen very often, but it's a real thing, And then, the next morning you wake up and you're like, oh, I wonder if the snake is still there. So you just kind of crack the door open to take a peek out there. Is the snake still there? And now that it's light out.
I had this experience.
Rope and snake?
In Vrindavan, similar.
Okay.
I was in Vrindavan, and me and Krishna Chaitanya, whose wife is a regular Zoomer.
She's a sage group leader now, I believe.
She's a sage group leader, Chandrabhaga. So we were sleeping together in Vrindavan, and I woke up early to take a shower, and Krishna Chaitanya was a very heavy sleeper. We were talking about these. There are these lizards in northern India called whatever it is. It translates to 20 times more deadly than a cobra. That's what the name means. They say they call them two steps, and if you get bit by them, you have 2 steps to live.
Is it a snake or it's some
it's a lizard.
A lizard, okay.
It's a lizard. And we were just absorbed and talking about them and talking about 2 steps and what would you do? What would you do in those 2 steps? Do you only have 2 steps? Like if you don't move, do you die? But it's like they're just very potent. So that next morning,
you were seeing 2 steps everywhere.
Oh no! Check it out. So it's like 4 a.m. I just get out of the shower. I come back to my room, and there's a harmless chameleon in my room.
Oh, sweet.
Because there's many harmless chameleons in Vrindavan. And I immediately just said, and I grabbed him by the sleeping bag and started dragging him out of the room while he was still in the sleeping bag. Because all I could think was, this must be a 2-step. It wasn't. It was one of those typical harmless fly-eating chameleons you see.
Okay, so there you go. To superimpose something means you lay one thing on top of another, right?
2 steps.
And so you superimpose the concept of a 2-step on top of a chameleon.
Yeah.
And that's a type of ignorance. Sorry to characterize your vision that way, right? And when at a certain point you were lit up with knowledge, was it that the light was turned on and you saw it was a chameleon? How did you determine that it was a chameleon?
I think we just killed it.
Oh, no.
You want to know the God honest truth? Yes, I think I just.
Was it dark or was it light?
I don't know. I just thought it was a 2-step. I just was convinced this has to be a 2-step.
Okay, so let's go.
I was like thinking everything was a 2-step. You ever get so panicky where every little noise in the house you think is a criminal?
I don't, but I understand
Well,
that you
have
do.
a little small house. If you have a bigger house, then clink, clank, clink, clank. Everything is some guy with a dagger in his mouth, crawling on all 4s, trying to.
I don't think it has to do with
basement windows.
I don't think it has to do with the size of the house.
Well, because there's.
I think it has more to do with the particular mind and it's the way that mind works. But let's go back to the snake and the rope. So now it's morning time and you crack open the door. Now it's lit up. There's light. The light of the sun is there, and you look and you see, oh, it wasn't a snake. It was a rope all along. Yeah. Now that the darkness has been dissipated by the light, now that the darkness of ignorance has been dissipated by the light of knowledge, I see that this was never a snake. My fear that I felt was based on a superimposition. It was based on something that really didn't exist. And you know, this is going to have this concept of adhyasa, or the superimposition, and this analogy of the snake and the rope is very important. And Bhagavatam applies it to how we understand, you know, we impose the idea that this body is myself. And based on that superimposition, we begin to live a false life and pursue things that get us caught in loops, you know, cycles of birth and death and enjoyment and suffering. The Advaitin philosophers, Advaitin Vedantins, they actually use this analogy of the snake and a rope to speak also to what is this world? Is this world real or unreal? And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But I was thinking that also this kind of stuff is so important, just to have a peaceful mind and to have decent relationships with people.
Yeah.
That to understand that, like you take the political division that's so
base.
I would say that's just so prominent,
Yeah.
you know, currently. We all have ideas. I'm not trying to imply that there's no rational kind of way of determining what policies are best or not. But what I'm saying is we begin to hate people because of the choice that they've made. But the choice that they make and the choice that we make has a lot to do with how our mind has been shaped. And it may be a good intention manifesting through a mind that's shaped in a conservative way, and a good intention being filtered through a mind shaped in a liberal way. And they're both good intentions, but they come out different because they're coming through a mind that has been shaped that sees reality in a particular way. But we hate the other person, and all that does is it convinces them all the more to hate you, that you are actually evil, not that you have no good intentions. You know, when you respond to them, you know, with that kind of heated animosity, it only further convinces each side that the other side has no good intentions, that they're evil to the core. Yeah. And that just kind of perpetuates the polarity further and further and further and further. And we can never actually come together and say, let's try to understand each other. Why do you see it that way? You know, why do you see it that way? You know, and for a yogi, that means we never have a peaceful mind. We get all caught up in those loops.
You know what I was thinking, which is a little sad, and I run into, you know, I was having this conversation, I think, with Happy Jack yesterday. Happy Jack is here. And, you know, Happy Jack's got such a good attitude, and, you know, Dr. Henry's here. He's got such a good attitude, and the chief is here. This guy's got just such good attitudes about life. Everybody here this weekend's got a great attitude. But there's people in life. So I was thinking, when you bring a good attitude, when you bring a positive attitude, when you bring I'm here to give attitude, a here to love attitude, and how can I be of help attitude, and you enter into the bhakti circle, you accelerate your bhakti path so fast. But some people who have had some hurt, you know, from a previous life experience, and there's a lack of trust, and there's a feeling like they have a narrative that people are out to get them, and people aren't trustworthy, and you know, you can't trust anybody in this world, and you bring that into a bhakti circle. Then you want to be hope. Okay, this is my new spiritual path. Everything is light, and then you bring your old mental framework into a sacred circle. And it hinders people on their devotional spirit. I've seen it again and again. They've brought their old samskaras that never even served them then. Right. Because they've had these heavy experiences. Then they bring that into sacred circles, and they say, oh, see, I don't trust this guru. I don't trust, you know, this. Everyone worships this guy or this lady, but I see them for what they actually are. And who knows if this is even, they bring their intense negative skepticism and cynicism into a place where it's not going to serve them.
I'm with you on that,
You know what I'm
Rogan.
talking about? And I feel bad because I feel like, what do we got? Lobotomize these people, or what? You know, how can you help these people when they're coming in with such heavy glasses of half emptiness within them?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, it's hard, you know.
I think you're pretty positive. I like you.
Thank you, Rogan. I like you too.
Yeah.
That's why I do this with you every day.
Hmm.
But yeah, you know, like let's say there are certain people that are really prone to accepting conspiracy theories. And Raghunath, I'm not saying that there aren't genuine conspiracies out there, because I know you're
They're all coming true. They're all coming true. It's
not all of them.
conspiracy theory until it shifts.
Some of them. And then when
Let's just call them theories. There's other
well, no, well, they're
theories.
theories of conspiracies, and that's the point. Some of them pan out to be true, and some of them don't
I know,
pan
but
out to be true.
conspiracy theory is like a pejorative.
It doesn't have to be. Just take it.
It doesn't have to be, but
Okay.
but it's used that way. If you say he's into conspiracy theories,
Well, I don't use it that way.
It's a pejorative.
Oh, okay, but let's use it not as a pejorative, just for the sake of this conversation, right? A theory that a bunch of people are getting together and planning something and making something happen, where actually there may be, you know, with an evil intent, right? And that may not actually be the case at all.
Okay.
So some people, they look up in the sky and they see some streaks across. Oh, there's a conspiracy. You know, these people are dropping poison on us. It's the government. It's this, that. You know.
Research that, by the way. Surprise what you find.
What do they call that?
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails, yeah. And you know, so some people, there's practically not a conspiracy theory that they don't buy into, right? Like if you put a conspiracy theory out, their mind is shaped in such a way where they're always going to lean into it. They're always going to be like, yeah, here's another example, you know? And if you take that mindset into the world of bhakti, you're going to buy into every conspiracy theory that there is within the realm of bhakti.
There's a lot of bhakti conspiracy theories,
yeah.
too.
You know, it's so many.
And you know, it says in the Gita, for a doubting soul, right? For a doubting soul. What's the verse? Let me get the verse so I'm not just talking.
There's neither happiness.
There's not happiness in this life nor the next. Yashastra vidhim utstricha vartate kamakarta. What is that?
Asasadim abatnoti nasukam na param gatim.
Na param gatim.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's right.
But
what do you want the translation?
I'm trying to think of the translation. You got it?
There's neither happiness in this life nor in the next.
How does it start?
Nashastra vidim uchtraja.
For those who disregard
reject
the shastras.
Yeah. And act according to their own whim.
And act according to their own whims.
Yeah.
Right? There is neither
that
happiness, perfection, or the supreme destination.
That's right. That's right.
You don't even get happy.
Okay. Now here's the thing, Raghunath. If we zoom out and take this idea still further, the conception, when we look at the Vedic literature, some people are looking at it and say, oh, look, this is all about devotion to a personal God.
Yeah.
And other people are looking at the same exact body of literature and say, no, it's not. This is about giving up all conception of form and even individuality and just realizing you are the one and there is nothing else. Now, is it that we're looking at that with our through our mental programming and coming up with different ideas? And so we're going to look at the snake and the rope thing. This is going to come up in the verses that we read today. So why don't we go and take a look at that?
We didn't start the Bhagavatam, did we?
Let's get into it.
Well, this is all the Bhagavatam, truthfully. This is important stuff.
It is.
Narayanam namaskitya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is every means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttamasloki bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. And loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. It was interesting. As I was saying those prayers, I was thinking all of this could be a conspiracy. You know,
You see that,
could
right?
say, oh, why are they dark? You were not born in the darkness of ignorance. That's just a theory pushed by this guy's, or the Lord is praised with transcendental songs. You know, you could just like take apart the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder how that is going to affect our conversation that we're about to have in reading Bhagavatam.
I
But
don't even believe you anymore.
all right. I don't believe you. You're not even real.
How do I know you're not real?
How do I know
You
you're
could have
not
been a droid.
government mole planted into this podcast? How
You're
do
a
I know
Russian
you're even the
bot.
real Ruggonath?
You're a Russian bot. The real Kostuba could be abducted.
That's what I'm saying. I think the real Ruggonath has been abducted.
Imagine if this was true and we're actually both playing off each other. Like I'm a fake Raghunath and you're a real Kostuba.
That's like
And
spy
I'm
versus
programmed
spy.
to say everything Raghunath would say.
Did you ever like those spy versus spy cartoons, Rugg?
I loved them. Are you kidding? Mad Magazine, it was all about that.
That's
I
right.
had a subscription.
Okay.
All right. Joey says we're both fake. Aw, Joey.
All right, let's hit it, Rugg. Text 55. We were hearing last week about this kind of process of dissolution and elevation, right? Going to finer and finer levels of dissolution of the body and the mind until you get to that level where there's just the self, or also rising in more subtle bodies to more subtle planes in the universe and rising up and up and up until you boil it down just to the self.
Yeah.
And there was a message there about, hey, this world in a sense is illusory.
Yeah.
Don't focus on it as a source of your happiness or you will never find it.
Yeah.
Turn within, go, to step away from the pravriti marg, thinking that the material world is going to satisfy you. Through knowledge, leave it behind, begin to turn within. And that's called the nivriti marg. So now we're going to pick up in text 55, starting to move. Well, it's responding to what we read last week.
This gradual process of elevation for self-realization is meant for those who are truly aware of the absolute truth. After repeated birth on this path, which is known as Devayana, one attains these consecutive stages. One who is completely free from all material desires, being situated in the self, need not traverse the path of repeated birth and death.
So this Devayana, Yana has, it kind of indicates like traveling. And so Devayana seems to indicate that this process of traveling, we were hearing in the last verse, traveling from one planetary system to the next, to the next, to the next, going to finer and finer levels of existence. And those are kind of, I think the word Devayana is used there because each one of those plateaus is, you could say, ruled by a particular deva, a particular god or goddess, and that they facilitate or allow us to rise to the next plane and provide, in a sense, the finer body that you exist in that plane.
So it's a pretty interesting concept, isn't it? You can get a more refined body that's not gross, made up of earth and water. It's like a subtle body.
Yeah, maybe invisible to people that don't have the eyes to see it.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting concept.
Yeah. So just like, people say, well, we went to the moon and we don't see any of the things that, that the Vedas describe as going on there. Well, first there's a conspiracy theory, right? Did we actually go to the moon? And then there's the idea that, well, even if you went there, it doesn't mean that you could actually see everything that's going on there. We assume that whatever exists, if it exists, I can see it with my eyes. Well, that's not necessarily true.
I'd like to see a poll from everybody on the message board. Did we go to the moon or did we not go to the moon? In your opinion, with the research you've done, looking at all the films.
Okay. Now, so it's saying that if one, so this is and that was describing a process that would take many lifetimes to rise to these higher levels and become free. But in text 55, it said that one who is completely free of all material desires, being situated in the self, need not traverse the path of repeated birth and death. You can transcend it. Okay, text 56.
Even though situated in the material body, one who is fully aware of the paths known as Pitriyana and Devayana, and who thus opens his eyes in terms of Vedic knowledge, is never bewildered in this material world.
Okay. I think Pitriyana means the same thing like that. The forefathers are existing on these higher planets and they're somehow facilitating it.
By the way, Martine says, absolutely, we went to the moon. How could you say anything absolutely?
Okay, we're not gonna debate that right now, okay?
I just asked what you think, but absolutely, come on. I'm not gonna even say absolutely we didn't go.
All right.
He who exists internally and externally at the beginning and end of he who exists internally and externally at the beginning and end of everything and of all living beings as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the supreme truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus he, the Supreme Lord, is everything.
Okay. So even if you take this fascinating journey through different planets and finer levels of existence, all along, there's a person that exists internally and externally, right? He's in our heart, the super soul, but also this entire universe is existing within his body, you know? In one sense, this entire universe is his body, and this entire universe goes into his body and emanates from his body. So he's in everything, he's external to everything, he's at the beginning and the end of everything, right? He's the beginning and the end of this universe. He's there at both, et cetera, et cetera. There's this being that's been a witness to our entire journey that we can surrender to at any moment and connect with at any moment and transcend all of the bondage that one's trying to transcend through this very gradual process. And that this being, he's possessing these apparently contradictory qualities, you know, apparently contradicting attributes. There's this being that's kind of beyond. Connect with that being, and you know, turn away from the promise that this world will give you the satisfaction that you need. Understand that it's your connection with that being that awakens the satisfaction that is your nature, you know. And now this text here is going to help us consider this carefully. We've been hearing texts that's saying, in a sense, turn away from the illusion of this world. But is this world actually illusion? Is it entirely illusion? Does it exist? Does it not exist? This is a fundamental question in Vedanta. There are two schools with two different ideas about it. And that'll come up here in text 58.
Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has its factual existence. Accordingly, to prove by speculative knowledge that there is no reality would be extremely difficult.
Okay.
It's not like it's not there. It's just not what it appears to be.
Well, there you go. You see, let's begin to read the commentary to this, Raghunath. Why don't you start in on it?
Wouldn't it be good? So this is the commentary of text 58. The impersonalists try to prove that the varieties in the vision of the empiric philosopher are false.
Okay, so if you take the philosophers that are impersonalists, the Advaita Vedantins is specifically what Prabhupada's speaking about, that they're out to establish that the varieties that we see in this world, all the forms that we see in this world, our individuality, that you're a person and I'm a separate person. And therefore all the relationships that are based upon that and all the varieties of forms in this world, that they're all false, that there's actually no distinction. There's no individuality. We may perceive it empirically. No, certainly there's form. There's Raghunath, he's got a form. There's Gus lying on the ground. He's got a different type of form, and he's a separate individual and I'm a separate individual. The Advaitins are saying that's all false. Okay, continue.
The impersonalist philosophy, Vivartavad, generally cites the acceptance of a rope to be a snake as an example of this fact.
Okay.
As we were saying earlier, according to this example, the varieties within our vision are false, just as a rope seen to be a snake is false. But the devotees, the Vaishnavas, they say something different. That although the idea that the rope is a snake is false, the snake is not false. One has experience of a snake in reality, and therefore he knows that although the representation of the rope as a snake is false or illusory, there is a snake in reality. It's not just like it because snakes don't exist. No, there is a real snake.
Yeah.
Right. Similarly, in this world, which is full of varieties, it's not false. It's a reflection of the reality in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual world. So we are living in the mirror, and the mirror is coming. It's mirroring something real.
There you go. Yeah. This used the idea of a mirror here, which is a common idea in Vedanta too, where we speak about reflection. What is it? Pratibimba. Although one may consider the reflection of the sun from a mirror to be false, it has factual existence. So if I show you the sun in a mirror and I'm holding that mirror right in my hand, is the sun in the mirror real or is it false? Now, essentially what Prabhupada is saying in this commentary is that the impersonalists are saying it's entirely false.
Right.
Whereas the Bhakti Vedantins are saying what's false is that you think the sun in the mirror is the real sun. But there is a mirror and there is a reflection of the sun in the mirror, and those are real. It's only when you think that that's the sun that you're in illusion. But here's the key. And this point is so important. And it's kind of you see this example of the snake and the rope is like, it's a fundamental analogy used to explain reality, used by the Advaitins. It's used by both schools, but it's understood differently. And where the Advaitin philosophy kind of begins to crumble is this idea. They call this adhyasa, the superimposition, right? I impose the idea of a snake onto the rope in ignorance, in the darkness of ignorance at nighttime, right? In the darkness of my ignorance, I imposed the idea of a snake upon a rope, and therefore I suffered. I felt fear. But when the light of knowledge lit up the area, then I saw it's not a snake, it's a rope. I was superimposing an idea of a snake onto the rope. Now all my fear is dissipated and my suffering is relieved. Now, so they're saying that everything is Brahman, that there is nothing but Brahman. There's nothing but the eternal, unlimited spiritual energy. That's all that exists. And any concept of individuality, any concept of form they say is a superimposition on Brahman, right? That with knowledge, the superimposition disappears, and then you realize that I am that Brahman. The fact that I thought I am Kastuba, and that is Raghunath. The fact that I thought I was this body, the fact that I thought that I'm existing in a world with all this variety of form and shape and color and relationship, all of that is a superimposition on the one Brahman. And when we realize it, then it's not even that we merge into Brahman. It's just that we realize I am Brahman. Or that I am the one. Now here's the point, and Prabhupada is making this. There's one flaw in that theory. And that is, in order to superimpose the idea of a snake onto a rope, one thing has to be there first. You have to have seen a snake before.
Right.
If you've never seen a snake before, there is no possibility of you imposing the idea of a snake onto a rope. And so similarly, if there's no form, if there's no individuality, if there's no variety and color and so on and all that, then there's no way to impose that upon Brahman. So then right there, the entire theory falls apart. It's like, where did we get the idea of individuality? Where did we get the idea of form if it doesn't exist in reality? There's no way that you may look at the reflection of the sun in a mirror and say, that's the sun. And granted, you're confused, right, when you do that. But the only possible way that you could have that confusion is if the sun actually exists. Otherwise, the sun cannot be reflected in the mirror. And the only way our individuality, our own individual personhood, that's eternal, and the forms of this world, the only reason that we can perceive them is that form and individuality must exist. And if all that exists is Brahman, then they have to exist in reality. There has to be some conception of Brahman that has form, some conception of Brahman that has separate individuality that exists, that we're perceiving incorrectly in this world. And so the Bhakti Vedantins are saying, yes, we're an illusion, but we're an illusion. We can only perceive things this way because we can only superimpose these ideas because they exist in reality. And that's what the spiritual realm is. Within the spiritual realm, there's individuality. Within the spiritual realm, there's form that is beyond the influence, the material influence of the destructive material influence of time. And it's that we're imposing in this world. So we think, I am this body. Because we exist as with a spiritual body. We think, I am me, separate from others, because we do exist as an individual. We search after love because love exists. Whereas the Vedantin would say love is a complete illusion. All there is Brahman. So I kind of also take this back to the earlier conversation, is even to accept it, right there, the thing falls apart. And if we still buy into it, perhaps it has the idea that all form is illusion, that our individuality is an illusion. If we buy into that, perhaps it has something to do with the programming within our own mind, that we are, you see, here's a question. If my perception of this world is my superimposition on top of formless Brahman, and Raghunath, and your perception of this world is your superimposition on formless Brahman, well, why is my superimposition lining up with your superimposition? Why do I go to the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street and see the New York Public Library, and you go to the corner of 5th Avenue and 42nd Street and see the New York Public?
That's a very good point.
There would have to be some person, some organizer that's organizing all the illusion outside of us, right? Which is saying in their mind, there would have to be something outside of Brahman that's coordinating all this superimposition, and they don't accept that there's anything outside of Brahman. Now, what the Vaishnavas or the Bhaktivedantins say is that there's Brahman. There's this verse, and Prabhupada's going to quote it here later. Sarva kalva idam Brahma. That everything is Brahman. And the way that the Advaitins approach that, how do you explain that? You know what? We've run out of time. Maybe we got to come back here tomorrow, because it's such an important topic. And there's some really interesting and clear ideas on on making this distinction. You know, how and why one can see how to interpret a verse like that everything is Brahman. Two schools interpret it differently. One is tenable, one makes sense, and the other one is really you just kind of have to twist and juggle words and so on to accept it. And that's kind of a debate that's been going on for centuries.
All right. I'm glad you ended it right here today.
All right. Why, you're getting tired of it?
Debate is over. No, I'm glad the debate is over.
Oh yeah. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, because there's a lot more to it.
Okay. Miss Mara, what can we take away from today's class?
We only see our reality influenced by our mental programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beware superimposing two steps on chameleons.
You got to be careful with that.
Yeah, you killed an innocent chameleon.
In Vrindavan, I killed it.
Oh, we're gonna.
It's like I'm gonna have to take a birth probably as a chameleon.
Hopefully
Yeah,
it's in Vrindavan.
in Vrindavan, though.
And get killed.
Let the light of knowledge dissipate our fears.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about the chameleon.
Unite to understand. Don't perpetuate polarity.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't bring negativity into sacred circles.
Let it go.
Our divine connection is the only thing that satisfies and fulfills.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We can only superimpose ideas if they're real.
There you go. They have to have some reality.
We're living in a mirror.
Oh.
And is Kastuba a Russian bot?
Is Kastuba Russian bot? There we go. Thanks,
I am not a Russian bot.
Perhaps. Kama chameleon.
Comes
Anyway,
and
please
goes.
pray for me, everybody, for killing that chameleon.
Oh, karma chameleon. Yeah, that is
Get
the
it?
karma chameleon.
I'm the karma chameleon. How about that? Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I hope to see everybody in Jersey next week. My Jersey adventures and Philadelphia adventures. And then the following week, a little shelter mini tour. How are we going to do that, Kastuba?
How is it that during the entire show you were all fuzzed out and lagging and kind of stuck, and
Now I'm
before the
perfect.
show and after the show you're fine?
I don't know. Go figure.
Mystery.
It's a mysterious world we live in, Kastuba.
Sure is.
Imagine if Jesus just appeared right now on the screen and said, all the stuff you're doing is wrong. Worship me. How many times I got to tell you? Oh, Jesus, we thought we were. We thought we were all in this together. No!
I'm the only
You're all
way.
in Maya. To use your words, you're all in Maya. I'm sorry, Jesus. We like sweet baby Krishna.
And then imagine if Jesus pulled his face off.
I am Krishna. I am Krishna. I was just testing your faith. I dropped the ball, Krishna. Forget it.
And then Krishna
And
pulled his face
Krishna
off.
pulled his face off. It's Muhammad. Wasn't expecting this. Muhammad
But you're
pulls
not
his
allowed to
face
see
off.
an image of Muhammad.
Right. Sorry. And then the imageless face of Muhammad comes off. And who do you see? Lord Narayan. Actually, this is the original form.
And then it's Shiva. Durga.
Chandra. Wasn't expecting Chandra. Chandra is the supreme. Moon worship.
Great, you gotta go. You're 5 minutes late.
And then the Mormons show up. Actually, it's been us. We're actually right.
You're Joseph Smith.
Joseph.
Who are you? I'm Joseph Smith. We don't even know what you look like.
We don't even know what Joseph said. Okay, guys, I gotta go satsang to give. Beautiful day for a beautiful day. Let Krishna and Balaram be your object of meditation. Mwah. Haribol.